to be honest may sound easy. Tell the truth.
Is it that simple?
There's this really cool real-life glitch where if you just tell people things that aren't true and they believe them, then you get things that you want without having to actually earn them. It's called lying, and while all of us have told a fib here and there have been some real doozies in the MMA world. I'm not talking lying to your friend about your weekend plans. I'm talking lies on a scale that can change lives and often involve massive sums of cash. Let's chat about them. I'm Tommy from MMA On Point, and these are the 10 biggest WTF lies in MMA history. Number 10. Power slop.
Could you have a more toxic product at the moment?
Dana White spent decades building the UFC brand into the absolute juggernaut that it is now. And along the way, he's learned a lot about promotion, and more importantly, has become synonymous with brand success. Which is why his current passion project, Power Slap, well, one of them, he's a boxing promoter now too, because 3 full-time jobs is definitely something that somebody can do effectively and won't start to impact the quality of any of the ventures.
Wait. Is that sarcasm?
But Power Slap is power slapping, relatively speaking, at least on the back end apparently, as White's claimed the promotion is worth $750 million currently.
What?
As suspect as that claim is alone, he's gone a lot further in his claims about the budding sport, I guess.
As far as social media goes, we're number 1 in all of sports. And when I say all of sports, if you take the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, F1, WWE, and added them all together, their numbers don't compare to Slap's.
Now, of course, White's generous presentation of Power Slap's popularity has been heavily scrutinized even by the least scrutinizing among us. And I mean, look, he did get a deal initially with TBS, even though they ended it 2 months later, and they did get $30 million from Rumble to put their shows on that platform, a deal that was so great it expired and was not renewed. But now V-Chain is paying $76 million over the next 6 years to Power Slap, and Dana seems to be trying to shoehorn Power Slap into his dealings with the Saudis. So I think more than anything, Power Slap is proving that people will pay Dana White huge amounts of money in hopes that the thing he's saying is popular will eventually be popular. Does Power Slap do relatively well on social media? Yes, it does. Is it a popular sport? Not even remotely. But hey, invest now and maybe soon.
You will lose all your money.
Number 9, questionable meat. Anytime somebody is massive and jacked at the same time, it's natural that everybody's like, well, how the hell did you get that way exactly? And the answer to that question, children, is performance-enhancing drugs.
How do you beat a man on drugs if you're not on drugs?
Wait, did you just admit to being on drugs?
There's really no other way unless you are just the most genetically freakish 0.00001%, which is what Bork Laser claimed.
I'm a white boy and I'm jacked. Deal with it.
2 weeks later, it was dealt with when it was revealed that he'd failed 2 different tests for clomiphene, so it turns out he was not just a jacked white boy, but a chemically enhanced one. Now, Brock at least has looked like a monster almost his entire life, so you could have been mistaken into thinking that we did just have to deal with it. But Alistair Overeem cannot make that claim. Early career Overeem looked like, you know, a very fit guy. He had fights at 200 pounds, but then in the late 2000s, Alistair would turn into a literal real-life superhero, something he attributed very famously to meat of the equestrian variety.
Did you eat horse meat too?
You don't like that?
You know, I don't think I've ever had
horse is very good protein. Better than beef.
I found a translated interview from a Croatian publication where Reem credited horse meat with his incredible transformation more directly. And I looked into this a little. It doesn't appear that horse meat is that much different than cow beef in terms of protein and nutrient content. And horse meat's a lot harder to come by, so you're probably better just eating some bovine. That said, that's not why Overeem looked like he was drawn by Rob Liefeld. It was PEDs, of course. Reem would be flagged for a TE ratio of 14-1 in 2012 and get suspended for 9 months. Number 8. Bailout. I am so excited to tell this story because I really feel like nobody ever talks about this, or I'm the only damn person to have remembered it, one of the two. So it's a fight night, and young Jeremy Stephens, you might know him as the hardest hitting 145er in the division.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Is meant to take on Yves Edwards on the prelims. I say young, but he was 14 fights into his UFC career. Anyway, he would get arrested the day of the card for a beef he had in the state of Iowa from a year previous that never got resolved. Now, they were in Minnesota at the time, but the Des Moines police let them know that he had a warrant on a burglary and assault charge, and Stevens got booked into the slammer. And here is where things get stupid. Here's the lie. Despite literally being in jail, Dana White was on social media going on and on the entire day after the news broke about how this fight was totally happening and that any reports otherwise were bullshit. He wasn't refuting that there was an arrest or that Stevens was in jail, but that the fight was on. And mind you, this went on all the way through the broadcast itself. During the prelims, Dana was still assuring people that Stevens would be fighting.
I was working for Fox back then. I was backstage and I saw kind of like all the madness going on, but I could just see the look on his face. Like he was like a raging bull back there, just like determined to fix this.
When the whole card came and went, everybody was like, what the fuck? I thought you said the fight was on.
I was devising a plan to break him out and come over here and do this fight. I would have bailed him out. I would have flew him to Des Moines, Iowa to face the charges down there. I was willing to do anything.
So what it sounds like to me is that Dana was offering to pay Jeremy's bail, but they hit a snag.
Yeah, he tried 3 different ways, bro. He had money, he had a wire, and they were just screwing him around. You know, my bail was $100,000 cash surety.
So what it really came down to is the bail was just too much to justify for Dana. But even if it could have been paid to tell everyone the fight is on with certainty when this guy is literally in jail, I mean, you have no idea how long it's going to take to process him out, get him to the venue, get him geared up. By the time the card was nearing the end, probably should have told everybody the fight was off. The charges against Stevens were eventually dropped and reduced to a misdemeanor disorderly conduct, and Edwards would knock him out in under 2 minutes a few months later, prompting Jeremy's move to 145, where when he knocks guys out, they don't fucking move. Conor TKOs people. Number 7, a tough break. Remember that time that Conor and Uriah Faber had that weird little moment in a hallway, and for some reason 4.4 million people watched it on YouTube? God, Conor was stupidly popular. Anyway, they made a whole tough season off of that, and there was this dude on there called Saul Rogers from the UK who was very clearly UFC caliber. He beat Ryan Hall in the quarters, won the semis, and was headed for the finale against Artem Lobov. But he never got to fight the Russian Hammer because on the final episode of the show, they did a little cut to Dana and he explained that Saul had lied on his visa application
and now has problems getting into the country and cannot fight in the finale for the Ultimate Fighter.
In his place would be Ryan Hall, who would go on to win the show and do fairly well in the UFC. Unfortunately, 19 knee surgeries, I'm not making that number up, have kept him out of the cage for the last 4 years.
He needs some milk!
Anyway, back to Rogers. So, what was the lie? Why did this guy throw away his UFC career? Because they cut ties with him after this incident. Well, Saul was a bit of a ruffian as a youth and had himself a rap sheet. But when they asked him if he'd ever been arrested before, he thought that meant like major stuff. And since it had been like a decade, he said no, which was, you're not allowed to lie on your visa application. So he couldn't come to the US anymore, and he couldn't win tough, but he had a little Bellator run, so the whole story isn't just bad stuff.
Another first round submission for Saul the Hangman Rogers.
Number 6, myth confirmed. For many years, there was a story floating around about Jon Jones that was largely popularized by Chael Sonnen's appearance on Joe Rogan. Considering the podcast episode got 13 million views on YouTube, that is 3 times what Conor and Faber's little hallway thing got. But the tale was one Joe already knew and wanted Chael to convey to the audience.
So USADA rolls in to Jackson's gym to do a test on Jon Jones. So he can see them coming. Where they parked, he can see them coming. So they don't know what to do with him. They hide him underneath the cage. Jon Jones hides under the cage. They say, well, where is he? He's supposed to, this is his gym. They say, how would I know where he is? So instead of leaving like they thought they would do, they take a seat. Well, there's like 8 hours left in the business day. They don't ever leave. Jon's under the cage the entire time.
So here's the thing about stories from Chael Sonnen, or anything that Chael Sonnen says. It's difficult to tell if it's just a story where he's trying to entertain, i.e. being full of shit, or if there's actual smoke to the fire and he's just told you something shockingly true. It's part of the man's charm. In the years after the podcast, Jones hiding under the cage became sort of an urban legend. And with Chael being the primary source and with his reputation, the story was largely dismissed. Until until Jon Jones admitted it himself. Remember when JBJ was beefing with Israel Adesanya? Well, they were going back and forth on Twitter, as one does when they're a professional fighter, and when Izzy called Jones out on the Cage story, he confirmed it. But that was years ago, and it was only for weed. At least that's what he claimed. Kinda sounds like a smaller lie to cover up the bigger problem. I'm not accusing Jon of anything, but I would have to think that given Jones's proclivities, he would be aware that out of competition, weed was not a banned substance. So perhaps something else left him waiting under the cage for a full 6 hours. But who's to say? Number 5, fabricated fighter. So when MMA started, everybody was lying about their fight record. Pat Smith from UFC 1 said he was 250-0 in Taekwondo. I'm gonna need a citation on that one. And this kind of thing went on longer than you would imagine. I remember Zulazinho touting a record of 38-0 in Vale Tudo prior to that bout with Fedor and Pride. Like, I don't know about that one, Chief. But to lie about it in the modern age, where there's wikis being updated every second, SureDog and Tapology keeping up with everything as best as possible, and the endless supply of information on fight promotions big and small on social media, it just seems like it would be completely impossible. But that is apparently not the case, because Askar Mazarov got into the UFC with a bogus fight record. He literally just made a bunch of shit up. His record was listed as 25-7 when he got signed by the UFC, but for years, this dude had been changing his name to skirt his losses, making up promoters and promotions, creating fake fight posters, and hitting up SureDog and Tapology for corrections to pad his record. But getting to the UFC heightened the scrutiny, and suddenly his record went from 25-7 to 21-11, and then to 19-12 over the course of a week. And that was just what they found out at the time. It was even worse than that. The incredible shrinking record had his opponent Alonzo Minifield perplexed.
I don't want to insult him, but I mean, like, are you for real about fighting or are you not? And when you're in there, it's no more opposing. This is what it is. It's a fight. And this is the highest level. So we'll see.
We did in fact see, and Minifield finished him off in the first round, and he was immediately cut from the UFC for being a big faker.
Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
Number 4, bad guy lies. This is one of my favorite things about Chael Sonnen fighting Anderson Silva, and it's possibly the most Chael Sonnen thing that's ever been done. So after he lost to the Spider the first time, California was like, dude, your TE ratio is 17-1. That's higher than fucking Uberim when he got caught. You're suspended for a whole year. But at the hearing, which sadly is mostly gone from the internet, Sonnen told California that his testosterone was loaded because he needed it therapeutically for his hypogonadism, and that his team had already cleared TRT use with Keith Kaiser, the head commish over in Nevada. According to an account of the hearing, California didn't know who Keith Kaiser was, they thought Chael was a boxer, and they didn't even know who Dana White was. I mean, what in the actual hell was happening in 2010 in California? But after they found out that Nevada had approved an exemption, they reduced the sentence to 6 months. That was until Keith Kaiser started getting asked about Chael's exemption, and he was like, yeah, I never approved any exemption, we never talked, I don't know anything about that. So California came back and had another hearing with Kaiser as a guest, and by this time Chael had also had a money laundering conviction. Long story we don't have time to get into. So between that and lying to the commission, his full suspension was reinstated. Number 3, federal fucking prison. A tiny little lie was the very crux of one of the biggest scandals in the history of the sport, and it was one that I imagine has been made by countless fighters in the past, I have no doubt. Darrick Minner was all set for a throwdown with Shailin Norden-Becka for the featured bout on an Apex card, but there was one little problem. Minner had a substantial knee injury.
Allegedly.
So on his pre-fight medicals, he lied. He checked the little box that said he was injury-free, that he had no injuries to disclose. The result was a TKO loss in 67 seconds after Minner threw a kick with the bum wheel, reacted to the injury, then threw it again for some reason, before getting kneed and just turtling up until the fight was over.
Yeah, he's rubbing his knee right now, so I think it's a knee issue, left leg for Darrick Minner.
On the surface, this didn't seem that different than any other fight, but prior to the bout, the feds had already been alerted to suspicious betting activity surrounding the fight.
A lot of people were incredibly suspicious going in to the fight.
People were betting on a first-round finish, right? They all knew something.
And immediately an investigation was opened. Minner's coach, James Krause, was a known betting sharp, and so while most of the heat went his way, including a federal investigation, Darrick was suspended by Nevada for 29 months and cut from the UFC. Now, how much Minner knew or what really happened in the cage there, we don't have answers on. And as far as the larger picture goes, this one remains unresolved. Maybe never resolved, at least publicly. Is the investigation ongoing? Only Kash Patel knows. Maybe Joe will ask him next time he's on his podcast. Number 2, I can't believe it. It was after fighting Vitor Belfort that Michael Bisping started having vision problems. That tends to happen when a head kick detaches your retina, and his eye would only get worse from there.
I think I've got a detached retina. And they said, well, why do you say that? I said, because when I put my hand in front of my face and wiggle my fingers, I can't fucking see them.
By the time he fought GSP, he was blind and only had vision in one eye, which is generally a problem when passing exams before your fight because you need to be able to see in order to do that. So how did Bisping manage? Did he get an exemption? Did he call Mr. Beast to cure his blindness?
Lying, cheating, bullshit codes. I fucking lied to so many doctors.
Yeah, he just lied. He just found ways to pass these exams like some kind of visually impaired Zach Morris.
You look into this thing and there's all these lights, you know, and you push a button when you see the light pop up. And I just fucking I passed it. I just fucking guessed it. I'm like, oh.
You just guessed it?
I guessed it and I passed.
And he had to do these exams with the state commissions too before each fight, mind you. And his explanation for passing those is even more absurd.
They just didn't check very good. Because I remember once the doctor, when you can see out that eye, right? I said, yeah, of course I can. I said, I've got all the paperwork. Okay. Cool.
Wow.
That was it.
Yeah, good to know our commissions are keeping these fighters safe. After his legendary run, Mike finally let it be known that he only had one eye.
And as you can see, it doesn't look too good.
Number 1, $4 billion fib. In May of 2016, Darren Rovell of ESPN nuked the whole MMA landscape with a story that the UFC was in advanced talks to sell the promotion for $4 billion.
What the fuck?
This was massive news, and looking at the story right now in 2025, it just looks like good journalism considering that's literally exactly what happened.
In 2016, the brothers sold the UFC to WME IMG, now known as Endeavor, for more than $4 billion.
Rovell even had WME IMG as one of the 4 that might buy the promotion. But at the time, Dana White went everywhere he could to deny that the promotion was for sale. The Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Dan Patrick Show.
And as far as the UFC being for sale, I've said this a million times. The day we decide to sell, I probably don't want to do this anymore.
His own platform, UFC Tonight.
The UFC is not for sale, but I can say this. If somebody shows up with $6 billion or $4 billion, we'll definitely talk to them.
They did talk to them. It was Ari and WME, of course, and it was $4 billion. And they were actively bidding on it at the time.
But Darren Rovell said via tweet, hey, at Dana White, once you hire an investment bank to give out your financials, it's hard to say you're not for sale. We had 3 different independent sources that said the UFC volunteered a full year of EBITDA of in between $200 million and $250 million to investors.
I put this at number 1 because, well, it's the most blatant lie we've seen from Dana probably ever. It's a lie about a massive sport-changing event, and it's really interesting seeing just how casually Dana lies in this situation where we know 100% that he was lying. It just goes to show you how good this guy is at doing that. Hilariously, this moment and several others have made Rovell a sort of recurring enemy of Dana's, in which anytime he makes a statement about him, he hilariously pretends to not know his name.
What's his name tonight? That idiot's name that I can't stand. The dipshit there. What's his name? The dipshit that thinks he knows about this business. Darren Rovell, yeah. The fuck does Darren Rovell know about fighting, number 1? Stay out of our business, dipshit.
I'll tell you whose name Dana never forgets, the editor of this video, Max Randall. Please follow him on his socials and go check out his awesome YouTube channel. A massive thank you to our channel members. Your support is so greatly appreciated. Fight fans, hit the join button, get some videos early, get some exclusive content. Would highly recommend it. Like and subscribe because I love talking about this shit all the time and there's gonna be plenty more videos. Leave a comment about which of these lies sets you off the most or other lies you thought were egregious as well. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys out on the road.